It can be one of those things which is both exciting and hard to do. It goes to Holistica Consulting. Congratulations to Holistica Consulting. What an amazing achievement. Are you there?
First up, I'd like to give CXO 2.0 Conference Visionary Award to the CEO of Holistica Consulting. It's the first to create a training academy for technical recruiters and HR and enable them to speak the language of IT with confidence and credibility. He's done a series of masterclasses to over 100,000 attendees. And recently, his training academy, oh goodness gracious. Hello, Ayub Sheikh.
Done the IT two-day masterclass from Holistica. Probably one of the best training sessions that I've ever been in. It teaches you from the bottom to the top. It doesn't just teach you around IT itself, but the history behind it, where it came from, and why we are where we are today.
And I just want to learn more, really. I think the way that I teaches, you can tell how passionate he is about IT, and it's infectious, really. So I just want to go out and learn a lot more.
Many thanks to Ayub. Just completed the IT recruitment masterclass. I'd recommend it to anyone. I think it's brilliant. In terms of me moving forward, I know that this course is going to help me make a lot of money, and that's obviously going to benefit my life. So many thanks, and everyone else should go ahead and do it.
Hi everyone, it's Ayub Sheikh here. I'm absolutely thrilled that you've decided to join me today for this transformational training session on IT recruitment. Listen, this session is all about filling that final missing piece of the jigsaw that will make you a complete standout IT recruiter. Now, you've probably already had the sales training. You've probably already been trained on how to use your CRM or ATS system. But there is still one huge thing missing in your arsenal, and it's probably holding you back. It's the thing that's making you just an average, lukewarm performer in tech recruitment. You've asked your colleagues for help. You've even turned to ChatGPT, but the results are still not really what you want. You are not engaging with the IT candidates and the hiring clients in a way that's making you stand out. And that's because you're simply not coming across as credible in what you're discussing, which is the tech itself. And that is leaving your candidates and your clients with the impression that you don't really understand what you're talking about. If you've ever found yourself in conversations saying things like, listen, I'm not that techie, so you might need to bear with me. Or if you find that most of your conversations consists of polite yeses as the other techie person speaks, or if you find yourself in meetings where you pretty much may as well be a note taker, then you're not engaging and you're not taking part in the conversation. You're not understanding the role, the technology, the terminology, and therefore the problem. How are you going to solve the problem in tech recruitment if you're not completely comfortable with what is being discussed? How are you going to convincingly sell the key strengths and benefits of a job to a candidate? How are you going to paint the picture of why they should go for this particular role? And how are you then going to be able to sell that candidate into a client convincingly with their key strengths and unique characteristics? Because after all, that is the role of a technical recruiter. And more importantly, why would you stand out as any different to the dozen or so other recruiters that candidate and that client has just met, all with the same blank expressions on their face? Tech recruitment is an area full of complexity and potential pitfalls, from the job specs that are written in hieroglyphics to the client meetings where you simply haven't got a clue what anyone's saying, let alone recruiting for. From the endless jargon and terminology on candidate CVs to the cringeworthy conversations with people who seem to be speaking an alien language. How can you come across as credible and confident as a tech recruiter if you have no idea how to engage with the same passion and commitment as the tech professionals on the other side? And how do you even start to learn about this vast and complex area of IT? The answer is what we're about to do now. In this session, I'm literally going to bring the world of IT to life for you. You see, I've taken tech recruiters just like you on a voyage of discovery so that they can very quickly engage with so much knowledge and enthusiasm in tech recruitment that hiring managers and candidates cannot help but be drawn to working with you. You see, in this short training session, we're going to become completely comfortable with key principles within IT. So you're going to get some insider secrets that will transform you and make you sound knowledgeable and confident in all areas of technical recruitment. In other words, how to come across as an exceptional IT recruiter through the entire process of hiring tech talent. Now, if you're new here, my name is Ayub Sheikh. I'm the CEO of Holistica's Tech Recruitment Training Academy. I'm an author, an award-winning trainer, the person who LinkedIn themselves chose to teach this topic on their own learning library. And more importantly for you, I'm the person who has shown over 100,000 technical recruiters around the world how to go from zero to expert in this field of tech recruitment without needing to become a geek or without having a technical background. We have shown people from all backgrounds how to quickly pick up the knowledge, mindset, and the techniques you need to stand out as amongst the top 1% of performers in tech recruitment. Now, before I dive into the material, this is to let you know that this is a webinar that will cover a lot of content immediately relevant for your role as an IT recruiter. If you want to get maximum value from this, you'll need to take notes. Don't do it passively. Make sure that you are interactive with this. So grab a notepad. Also, we'll be going through at quite a fast rate. So if you're watching this on something like LinkedIn Live, then you may want to watch the whole thing again, just in case you're interrupted halfway through. Or you may also want to get your colleagues to go through this after having seen this. In which case, take a note of this link here, and we will put up the recording of this entire 90-minute webinar there too. That's itrecruitmentacademy.com/webinar. itrecruitmentacademy.com/webinar. One more thing, if you're watching on a live stream broadcast, it's to let you know that myself and my team are always going to be monitoring questions and comments in real time on any live stream. So we'll respond to your comments directly in the feed after the event. So let's continue. In the 2 decades that I've been teaching tech recruiters, I've seen one thing. I've seen the tech sector grow into a $1 trillion sector. In those years, there have always been challenges to the IT market. The market dips and rises, but the key thing that I've seen is that it always comes back stronger and in a new form than before. So as the impact of AI hits all areas of society, we are once again on the brink of another wave of tech hiring. And the question is, are you ready to take advantage of the new era? If so, you will need to know how to stand out from the crowd and impress the IT candidates and the hirers you are speaking to. But I want to let you into a huge secret, and that is that it actually doesn't take that much to stand out from the crowd. This is a sector where many recruiters are trying to make money, maybe unsuccessfully, and they then assume that the market is competitive or it's oversaturated. However, most technical recruiters don't know what they're talking about. They are simply word matchers. Most technical recruiters don't know what you are about to learn. Now let me see if you can understand the secret of this training. This is a niche area of training which hardly anybody addresses. Your employer may not even be aware that this type of training even exists. This is not technical training. So I'm not teaching you about how to become a programmer. It's not HR training. So I'm not teaching you how to become a better HR professional. It's training tech recruiters how to think and speak like the technologists they interact with. Now, you may have no idea of how techy you really need to become in order to sound competent and credible in front of a client or a candidate. But after 24 years of doing this, we do. You need to speak the language of technology like a native, and you need to get there fast. Not with the huge learning curve that takes loads of cringeworthy conversations and loads of mistakes in the field. What you're going to learn today, I will teach you how to speak IT with confidence and sound amazing when interacting with anyone from technology, with just a taster from some of our material that we have on our online academy, so that you can build an instant connection and that you can make your customer feel understood. And we're about to do all of this without setting up an expensive formal event, without you having to sign up to a long and insanely technical IT course, without attempting to become a techie yourself, and without having to rely on a have-a-go colleague or manager who tries to explain their understanding of a concept to you. That is what we're going to get on this training. We're not here to learn about an HR system. We're not here to learn about recruitment. We're not here to even learn how to use an application. What we're here to do is to come across as an amazing sounding tech recruiter who can come across to technologists with the same passion and credibility that they have. If you're here for that, let's carry on. Now, why is this type of training really important for you today, especially today? Because today you are in a market that is transforming in front of our very eyes. As I've been posting on LinkedIn, we are in an age of blistering technological change with things like AI, blockchain, and even quantum computing starting to creep into the IT realm. So it becomes even more important for people like you who are recruiting in the technology area to really understand not just the fundamentals, but how the whole landscape of IT works together, how the pieces join together, what the roles do, what people are talking about, and really understand and appreciate the technologies at play and their impact. So if you want to stand out in this arena as a tech recruiter today, this is the session for you. What you're about to learn is a unique approach that we teach every day to thousands of students on our online training academy for tech recruiters. At the end of this session, you will sound less like a rookie and much more like a seasoned specialist. Now, it's really important that you watch this entire session right through to the end. Firstly, because you do need to see the entire landscape and jigsaw puzzle of IT come together. I'm going to walk you through a narrative and then eventually it will all click so that you fully understand how the world of IT works. But also because at the end of this session, I'll be handing out some free tools and resources which you'll be able to start using immediately and putting them into action. So do stay tuned for that at the end. We're going to remove all the guesswork and tell you exactly what you need to know in order to stand out as a really strong tech recruiter without all the drama that comes with trying to muddle through on your own. What I'm about to tell you now is hugely important, and I hope it clicks for you. It always does for our academy members, but sometimes the aha moment comes a little into the training. But I'm going to introduce this to you now, and it is this. Our training methodology means that we focus, of course, on all the key areas of training on our live masterclasses and on our online academy, extracts of which we're going to dive into today. But there is a reason why I'm not just going to dive into and start explaining what Kotlin is and why it's so much better than C# in an Android environment, or why some companies prefer Agile methodology but others come back from Agile over to Waterfall, and why some companies reject both and come over to DevOps, or why you need to speak differently to an enterprise architect than you would a technical architect. We're not going to do that immediately. You see, that's not how you train this stuff. That's not how it works. I have learned this over 24 years of training to thousands of people, and it turns out to be our secret sauce. You simply cannot understand the world of IT and speak it confidently as a tech recruiter, like a seasoned professional, by trying to understand term after term as you randomly come across them in job specs or CVs. I will say that again. You cannot come across confidently as a seasoned tech recruiter and understand IT by just randomly looking up word after word or term after term. IT is actually a narrative, a tapestry. You have to go up and be able to see things from a helicopter perspective to see the entire IT landscape and understand it, and then be able to drill down and be able to appreciate the individual technologies at play. Only then will you see why your clients are asking for a particular role with those particular skills. When you understand IT at this level, it becomes filled with context and implications. I will say that again. IT is filled with context and implications, and that's where you look impressive. When your client mentions WebSphere, you'll respond back, oh, you're using middleware, which means that they are going through a systems integration. And this could well mean that that company has actually just gone through a merger with another company, just from them mentioning the term WebSphere. I'll say it again, IT is filled with context and implications. IT is also filled with stories and history. And that is how do you start to fall in love with and become passionate about the whole arena of IT. That is when you become a true consultant and a true professional, rather than a mere word matcher. The why is as important as the what. There is a reason why Linux administrators will always be harder to find than Windows administrators. And then when you do find them, they will ask for more money. There is a reason why the term SQL is found in technologies relating to data, but why there are times when you mustn't say SQL. You must say SQL because it's not the same thing. The language was originally called Oak. That's because the developer loved a tree outside of his offices, but then they went forward and renamed it Java because there is something about coffee beans. And coffee beans are a very different form of code to spaghetti. Spaghetti code is messy, and that is why the plus in languages is so important. It's what makes C++ so much cooler than C. And that's why the sharp in C# is nothing to do with music at all, but it's a collection of 4 pluses. When you see this in a client site, you will say, so you're running an object-oriented environment. You see where I'm going with this? You can see the problem, and this is why you are always going to have less of an impact in understanding if you try and search these terms out on something like ChatGPT or ask your colleagues or managers to explain what a particular term is. They will not be able to explain the context and the implication. And that is everything. And that is what our training does. It's what gives you the aha moments and makes you feel a part of an IT conversation. Becoming trained with our unique methodology, you begin to see the glue that binds all of IT together. You can see how roles influence each other and how languages, operating systems, applications, hardware, and everything else that you're going to come across come together to form a beautiful symphony for your client. Then you, when you understand that, will be able to start speaking tech like a native. Now, you may have seen glimpses of some of the tools which we use in our training with our students, and I will show you at the end how you can grab some of these for yourselves too. So stay tuned for that. So I hope that you can see that just taking that little time for me to frame everything was really important to me. It's important for you to understand that what you're experiencing here is something unique and that you are in the right place. This is training that has been taken from our award-winning online academy, and even though this training has been delivered to global IT recruitment agencies, internal HR divisions, and project teams within some of the world's largest and most successful companies, it may be the best kept secret that large recruiters possibly don't want you as an individual or a small recruitment team to know about. But that's exactly what we're going to learn now. So by the way, if I ever refer to terms like the platform, our platform, or the academy, that's what I'm talking about, our online training academy. Now, you may already be thinking, that sort of training is something that you might be interested in for yourself as an individual or for your teams. Don't worry about that. We'll discuss that towards the end of the session, and you'll have an opportunity to look at how we can pursue that. But for now, let's dive in. All right, so let's go. Now, what I'm about to swoop through here rapidly are 4 key elements from our training that will ensure that you at least have the minimal foundations to come across powerfully and eloquently when you're discussing tech recruitment with anyone. Firstly, I'm going to give you this very important, simple model of IT that will enable you to speak to anyone about technology. How cool is that? This will immediately change how you engage with people from the very beginning. This is a really simple but yet really powerful model, which I still use even today. And it just seems to blow a lot of people away because of its simplicity and how you can universally apply it to almost any situation when discussing tech. After that, I'm going to give you a quick overview of the IT department, and we're going to go through the silos. So you'll start to get to grips with each of the IT roles and what they do within the IT process. Then, hugely important, I'm going to introduce you to terms that are definitely coming up when you speak to candidates and clients in tech recruitment. You need to understand how people actually build IT systems, and they'll be using methods such as waterfall, otherwise known as the project lifecycle, but increasingly agile, and of course, DevOps. And finally, we're going to put all of this together so that you can rocket yourself towards excellence within this arena. Now, I'm not sure how long that's going to take. Let's aim for 45 minutes to an hour. Let's see how we go. All right, so although I'm tech, I've got a tech background, I graduated in tech, and I've been teaching this tech demystified to the recruitment industry for 24 years. I was myself a technical recruiter, an IT recruiter within the City of London for over 7 years. Now, what that means is that I also had to train my own teams up when new people joined. And in many ways, the thing I'm going to give you now is the most important piece of foundational knowledge that I can give you. And the beauty of it is, as I mentioned earlier, it's very simple. This small piece of knowledge you gain from this first section here will help you better understand the terms and concepts which you're going to come across on CVs, resumes, and job specs. How utterly cool is that? Yes, there exists a model, a trade secret known only to us within IT, which I will now share with you, and this will help you to speak to anyone about IT. And what I mean by that is that even if you see new terms coming up in conversation, if you see new acronyms and jargon coming up on CVs and job specs, you can use this model to clarify for yourself what those new paradigms or concepts are. So if you're in front of a client and you're inquiring about their setup, a typical question might be from you, what's your IT architecture? Now, it's a great question, but do you even know how to understand the answer that is coming back? Well, here it is, our really important model. It looks like this. So you can see that at the very base level, this is how you can visualize IT, any IT system. Now, we're going to keep it simple for now, but this is perfect for recruitment. As you can see, our model looks a little like the sort of cake that grandma used to bake. It's got 3 layers, and the base of this 3-layer cake is actually hardware. And on top, there are 2 further layers of software. And that's it. Get ready to speak IT. We're starting to do it. The danger with this model is that because it comes across as so simple, you won't fully understand how truly potent this can be in conversation. So for example, I, of course, break this model down into many more layers. I can talk around the topic, and so will you after a while of training. But even in its simplest form, you can actually use this in a devastating way to actually understand the makeup of your client, but also the history of your candidate and which technologies they are really familiar with. So let's zoom in and look at the bottom layer of this model. And it's something that everyone is familiar with. It's called hardware. So if I asked you what's the IT in your pocket, what is your own personal IT architecture, you'd probably say something like an iPhone. But of course, what you're referring to is the hardware in your life. Now, you could say something like a Samsung, a Google phone, or some other device, but you are referring to the hardware layer of your IT architecture. And in actual fact, that piece of IT, that device, is actually an inert, lifeless piece of tin without the other 2 layers of our IT model properly installed. Your iPhone is going to be useless without the iOS operating system on it, and similarly with your Samsung phone. If it hasn't got Android, it won't come to life. So in IT, we need to get our hardware to come to life. And for that, we have to load up 2 more software layers. The first of them is the software that exists primarily to bring your hardware to life, and that is known as an operating system. All IT systems, big and small, will need an operating system to bring them to life. And you'll see these mentioned on CVs. They are, of course, terms like Windows, Linux, and iOS. Now, the operating systems are like the heart of an IT system, and they are critical to their operation. Actually, let's not move away from hardware just yet, because I want to show you how complex this entire area can get. Now, of course, when you say hardware, it's your own personal device, but when you're in recruitment, we're actually talking about a whole plethora of devices, and hardware falls into a spectrum such as this. Now, I'm not going to go into the entire training platform content, but I'm just showing you a glimpse of this here so that you can see that the hardware on your desk has a category, the large machines that run your entire company has a category, and there are hardware that actually run your clients' services. Now, all of them have names. So, for example, you may be using PCs or laptops, but they will be linked up to something in the center of your architecture. And those machines are often referred to as servers, but actually, in clear technical terms, those large machines are called mainframes. And the organization that is renowned for creating mainframes over the years is a company called IBM. So when we're linking these two things together, we have a network within the organization. And of course, there are specific roles relating to the looking after of these networks. Things like systems administrators, network administrators, all of these people come into play when you're looking at this sort of section. That entire area is known as infrastructure. And you will be looking after possibly infrastructure roles as well for your clients. Now, there's a fascinating area here of hardware, which actually doesn't look like computers, but it is IT hardware. And this is a very niche area of tech recruitment where engineering and IT come together. So that car there cannot drive without IT. That plane cannot fly without IT. Now, not all IT recruiters will get involved in this very niche area, but possibly if you're in Germany, if you're in Holland, in America, in Japan, then you could be involved in a niche area of IT recruitment called embedded systems, often referred to as real-time embedded systems. And that is a very niche area of tech recruitment requiring a very niche area of developer. Now, in this area particularly, the languages C, C++, and Java are the ones that are needed. You can't develop in other languages really for this particular area. Now, I'm not going to explain why here, but engineering, robotics, microprocessors, the automotive industry, the satellite industry, defense systems, they are all real-time embedded systems, and they require a very niche set of skills. But that is hardware too. And more as we go into the future, we are seeing devices that are becoming smarter, things that typically wouldn't have been classed as IT, like our microwave oven, our washing machine, and our fridge. And this area of IT is also hardware, but it is IoT hardware, the Internet of Things. Now, I'm just going to zoom out here and show you that there is a huge spectrum relating to hardware, and at both ends it can get very exciting. At the other end, we have hardware that is getting smaller and smaller, and that is becoming the general trend. So as you can see, as we go forward, you can see hardware that fits into our pocket, sits on our wrist, and as we move forward, contact lenses and even hardware that we inject into our bodies. So all of this is IT, and we can spend a couple of hours here discussing the implications of this level of hardware. We won't do that here. But typically, hardware is a very exciting area today because the miniaturization of hardware and the speed at which hardware is getting faster and faster and smaller is driving this whole innovation within IT today. Now, I do want to give you a quick glance of this because this is what we cover in the deeper training. But for now, I just love this stuff, so I do want to show you this. This whole idea of hardware becoming faster and faster and smaller was actually observed by a guy called Moore back in the day. And so there is a law called Moore's law, and you can see from this graph that they predicted very early on the speed at which hardware and generally IT would move forward. Moore's law states that the processing power of IT systems doubles every 18 months. And actually, it's got faster now when you think about AI. So we won't go into that now, but one of the things that I want you to know is that hardware and the way it is evolving has led to the rise of neural networks, LLM systems, and GPTs. And as we move forward, the astronomical rise of AI and the move towards general artificial intelligence and then super artificial intelligence. And so all of this was predicted quite a while back. And at this point, I may as well just show you some of the books that I kind of read. And I would recommend that you get into reading some of these books as well. But we'll leave that there for now. The physical stuff, the tangible stuff, and pretty useless without an operating system. Operating system is the software that we put onto hardware to bring it to life. Now, at this stage, I am so tempted to go in and give you a full half hour just on operating systems, because there is literally about an hour and a half training on this, but we cannot do that in this context. But what I will say is that operating systems are critical to understanding a key component of how your client works. Put it this way. If you understand that your client is using Linux, they will have a very different characteristic in terms of their operation than those who are using Windows as their operating system. So I can tell you so much about a Linux administrator, and I can tell you how they are going to be different to a Windows administrator. Now, each of these has their own characteristics, the tools they use, but let's not go that deep here. What we're going to do is just make you realize that at this stage, the people who look after these bottom two layers, by the way, which are often called the platform in your architecture, so your operating system and your hardware are known as the platform. The people who look after this in IT are your administrators. So let's just bring up the mind map from our platform on the Linux Systems Administrator. Now, would you believe me if I say we actually have over 1,000 mind maps for the students on our academy? And I'm just showing you an example of one of these now. So Linux Systems Administrator, what are the duties of a Linux Systems Administrator? Basically, we're just going to zoom in and I'm going to tell you what they do. They look after things like backup and recovery, of course, the user management side of things. Generally, whenever you see the term administrator, it means I look after the smooth running of a system. The smooth running, the health of a system. And so an administrator within the Linux environment will be looking at tools like monitoring tools like Nagios, Prometheus. They'll have backup tools like Bakula, and they'll be using security. So you can see that in here, the administrator role often encroaches onto the role of the security side of things as well. And in terms of their expertise, they will know things like TCP/IP, Linux systems distribution, Bash script, and proficiency in Python and Perl scripting, so things like automation. But also when you're interviewing these people, we have mind maps for interviewing all the roles that you're ever going to come across. So if you're interviewing these people, you'll be asking questions such as, give me a time when you optimize the Linux environment. What tools did you use and what were the results? You can ask scenario-based questions as well. Now, there's Linux, there's also generally infrastructure. These are all to do with the bottom two layers. And here you're going to see qualifications such as Cisco and Juniper coming into play here as well. But you can see that here is a mind map for an infrastructure engineer. Now, don't worry, if you're interested in getting some of these that I'm showing you here, there'll be a way to do that at the end, and we'll discuss that then. Suffice it to say that when you take the full extent of this training to its end conclusions, you will react very differently to the way you interview Linux administrators as opposed to how you interview Windows administrators. You will understand how to respond to the culture of an organization that's using Linux as opposed to a culture of an organization that has Windows as a platform. Now, I'd like you to indulge me for just a few seconds here because I want to digress a bit and just let you know where this can go when you've got the proper training. So, why is a Linux administrator paid more than a Windows administrator? Well, if you have the knowledge, you'll understand that, of course, Linux is an open system and Windows is a closed system. What happens in a Linux environment is that the administrator has full access to the source code, so they can tweak the source at a much deeper level. Now, this means that if you're running an organization that needs to fully be in control of the operating system, then Linux is the one that you really need, because it means faster bug fixing and the ability to build in better security and even better innovations. The innovations are only restricted by the community of Linux. Linux administrators have direct access to the root command line level. On the other hand, Windows as an administrator is looking after a locked system, so the kernel itself is locked. If it goes wrong at a deep level, they would need to contact Microsoft, but on the other hand, they have someone to blame as well. If you're a Linux administrator, what you're doing is you're actually directly dealing with the kernel, but if you're a Windows administrator, you are probably using a utility which is called a shell. And so here you see terms like shell scripting come into play. In Unix, a shell is the interface to talk to the system, and you see terms like bourne and see shell, and that's what a shell script is. Linux administration is like tuning an F1 racing car, where Windows administration is much more like tuning a car that you and I would drive. Very easy to use, and possibly you and I, if we went on the right training, could become a Windows administrator. There are plenty of Windows administrators graduating every year, but there aren't as many Linux administrators coming out in that way. So can you see, just an extrapolation of knowledge can give you an understanding of what is happening within recruitment and why. Context is really important. This will color your approach to recruitment, and it will allow you to empathize with the client much more. But let's move on. So that's the operating system. Now, without even knowing who you are, I'm going to guess that you're really not too excited by the operating systems in your life. And there's a reason for that. It's because operating systems don't seemingly get involved in all the good stuff, the fun stuff, the things we do every day. Sending emails, watching movies, listening to songs, browsing the internet, and matching candidates to clients. All of that good stuff is done by a very different class of software. And that is the final upper layer of software which we always install onto any IT system. This is the useful software layer. And that is the last layer that your IT clients will put in their architecture. You and I as users are far more excited by the application software in our life. Now, the key thing you need to understand is that you can't actually write a letter with an operating system like Windows. You can't design a yacht with Linux, and you can't match a candidate to a job using just iOS. All of these are the realm of application software. So Microsoft Word, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Excel, all of these are application software. And we leave it to this worldwide group of companies and communities of developers to create the lovely, exciting applications which you and I use in our personal and business life. This is where your software developers primarily come in. Now, what we're going to do is touch on software development a little. Of course, not the full extent of the hours of training that we've got on our platform, but I do want to expose you to some of that, and we'll do that later on. But you can see that this is the makeup of IT around us, including the things you may not think of as classic IT, such as the car that you're driving, the fridge that you're using, or your watch. There is a reason why tech recruitment, regardless of the challenges you might see in the market today, will always rebound as such a buoyant sector. And it's because technology has permeated into nearly all aspects of our lives. From work to leisure, from education to finance, from law to medicine. Increasingly with the rise of AI, even more so. And as a tech recruiter, make no mistake about it, you are providing the very lifeblood for that growth of businesses and indeed even our society. Now that diagram there, those three layers, form the very first golden concept that you must know as an IT recruiter. It applies to everything that you do. Every client that you speak to will be using something like this. So if tomorrow you ask your client that you're recruiting for, hey, what's your IT stack in this company? The stack in their company is going to look very different from your IT stack at home. In large organizations, at the bottom layer, we could have hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of hardware being served by a bespoke operating system especially for it. And then they may well have their own bespoke application software, which they may have developed themselves. So if you ask, hey, what's your IT setup here? They'll probably come back with something like, we have IBM Z series servers with ZOS running on them and a range of banking systems or risk management systems right at the top. And of course, you would nod sagely, and in your mind, you would think, tick, 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 3-layer model works every time. So that is a huge model for you to know. It's like the DNA of IT. How can you recruit for a client if you don't understand their DNA? Let's move on. Now, the beauty of what we've just learned is that we can use this to move on to and absorb briefly another silo within tech recruitment. A huge topic in itself. We have an entire masterclass on recruiting cloud-based roles, but I just want to introduce some fundamentals, some golden nuggets based on the back of what we now know. So of course, many of your clients will not even bother with the headache and the expense needed to look after this entire architecture, the expensive hardware, the platform. So a lot of your corporate clients will opt to just go serverless. This means that they have chosen to give up the responsibility to someone else, like a cloud provider, which is why many large organizations have gone over to cloud and the whole concept of infrastructure as a service. Enter cloud technology. Serverless providers are companies that buy all the big hardware themselves, they look after them, they house them, they maintain them, and then they lease out those resources as machines to your companies over the internet. So this takes away all the headache of upkeep and maintenance of the hardware. The companies just need to buy a monthly package for their organization and then tap into the processing power as and when they need it. So here we go. Terms like PaaS and IaaS are cloud-based terms, and they imply that actually your company doesn't want to handle the headache of big hardware, and that the IT candidates you hire for them will be more about connecting that company to a cloud or off-site server situation in some form. Of course, in today's session, I don't have the time to thoroughly explain all the concepts and nuances that come about from understanding cloud terminology. So as a simple rule of thumb, in tech recruitment, whenever you see terms like IaaS or PaaS or SaaS in a job description or a CV, that term automatically implies that the technology that client is using is a cloud-based technology. The candidate is going to be a cloud-based candidate. So the job is a cloud-based role if they're asking for any skills relating to AAS. Again, on our training platform, we take you through a masterclass so that you can become expert in this area with all of the associated roles relating to recruiting in the areas of Microsoft Azure, Amazon AWS, Google Cloud, and indeed even the cybersecurity implications of these roles. Again, dozens of mind maps for interviewing and looking at all of the duties of these roles are on our training academy as well. But we'll leave that there for now. I just wanted to slide that in as another silo of IT, which you really need to become comfortable with. So in fact, whilst we've got this up, this is a great time to introduce a completely new topic, and that is the IT department. Of course, you've got to understand the IT department. It's vast, it's huge. There's no way we can cover this within this short session, of course. But what we can actually do is give you a glimpse, a bird's eye view of the IT department. And what I've done here is I've just gone back into the platform, brought up the mind map for IT silos. Of course, we've got a masterclass going through the IT silo in detail. And so these are the domains that if you're in tech recruitment, you're going to be charged with looking after one of these as a specialist tech recruiter, or you may well be a generic tech recruiter and you'll be asked to look after pretty much recruiting for all of these. And so basically, if we look right at the top, we've got infrastructure, which covers networking, servers, and data centers. And as I said, on the academy, we've got hundreds of roles relating to all of the things that I'm mentioning here, which we go into with video content, with mind maps and quizzes. But for now, of course, we don't have time. We're just looking at the overview of the mind map in terms of the IT department. So if we look at the software development arena, we can touch on that later on. There is cybersecurity here as well. This is a huge silo. And of course, you're going to be specialist in this. If you're recruiting in this, by the way, these really are the rock stars of current tech recruitment because security is such a big deal. We, of course, have a huge 5-hour masterclass recruiting cybersecurity on the academy. So we're not going to go into detail on that today. Data management, which includes databases, data warehouses, data lakes, and all the roles relating to recruiting for these. The entire area of business intelligence and big data roles is also in here as well. Again, there's hours of recruitment training for all of these, and we cater for that. Well, I'm not going to go mad about that here, but I will let you know some more data concepts later on in this session. Now, we've just mentioned cloud computing, and so of course there is an entire masterclass on that as well. So in fact, each of these silos have their own masterclasses, video lectures, quizzes, and certifications. So our students on our academy will actually get certifications when they complete any of these, and they proudly show them off in LinkedIn, whatever. Now, I'm not going to dwell on any of that here, but I'll just let you know that this is really the entire universe of the IT department, and it's something you should be aware of. This is the range of roles or areas that you should be asking your clients about, and this is a mind map that you probably do need to have. So again, I'll tell you at the end how to get that quite easily. So that is your IT department in a nutshell. Now, I can't dangle all that in front of you and just leave you hanging. That's not our way. Let me add value to this. And the way to concisely show you how all this is going to work is I'm going to use a very bare-boned model of an IT department and then build on that so I can introduce the roles to you, because of course you need to understand where the roles fit in. So that's where we're going now. Here's the next big concept. Let's go, guys. Here we can see a very classic model of the IT department, a really bare-boned version just for this short session here so that you can understand in high level everything you need and where everyone sits. So right at the top we have this person called the IT director. Now historically they were called the IT director, but today we generally get terms with the C in them. CTO or CIO, that's the Chief Technology Officer and Chief Information Officer. Now, as you'd expect, these people are very strategically important. They'll have a really good strategic outlook, and they'll no longer get involved in anything to do with the hands-on implementation of IT. So they'll know about IT. There'll be people who are really good at understanding how to align the IT tools and technologies and concepts with the broader business objectives of the company. So they're there to align the IT strategy with the business strategy of the company. And terms like CTO, CIO are here. Now, they don't need to be technical because underneath them, we have people who are technical geniuses. And here's another huge golden concept in terms of roles. Whenever you see the term architect in IT recruitment, that means I'm really, really good at what I do. In general, it means I'm at the top of my game in terms of the knowledge that comes with IT. So in the strategy part of the IT department, there are people who will actually start to think about what sort of technologies will help us achieve the big strategic vision that the CTO has laid down. Which technologies will help us achieve the aims of the business? Here you see roles such as enterprise architect, solutions architect, and of course technical architect as well. There are a whole plethora of architectural roles, including cloud architect, web architect, etc. But generally what we're saying is if you see the term architect, always show them some respect because they are pretty much at the top of their game, and they'll be very influential if you actually place these people. They're generally the best paid amongst the tech roles as well. Now underneath here, we've got a department called development, and we're going to touch on that later on, but this is where the software developers sit. And all I'm going to do here for now is start to introduce a new term, waterfall. Now, I'm going to put waterfall, agile, and DevOps, because what we are seeing here at the moment is where these people all sit, but we haven't shown you how IT roles actually interact with each other. And we're going to go there in this session. Now, on the right-hand side here, we've got the internet part of things. Again, I'm not going to dwell too long on this, but basically things like web development, intranet design, and that sort of thing comes in here. Now, coming down here, we have the IT services department, and what this is really a group of people who will keep the IT department and all the software and infrastructure running. Here you have terms like support, operations, and infrastructure. And this is actually where the customer facing or customer focused part of the IT department will come in. So when you phone help desk, when you phone support, this of course has a number of terms. It's often called administration, but the really good significant term that you really need to know is operations, because the ops part of that comes into our DevOps terminology, which we'll look at later on. Now, in IT services, all of these people are there to make sure that your services are being delivered properly, and there is a qualification for this, and it is known as ITIL. So you will see the term ITIL very often in CVs of administrators, but even project managers and business analysts. I hope this is making sense, and I hope this is proving useful. So here we have roles such as project managers and program managers, and you'll definitely come across these during your career. I will explain these in a bit more detail here, but of course we have, once again, an entire masterclasses based on these on the Academy. But the project manager, not necessarily a technical person, there will be someone who has their eye on bringing in projects on time, to budget, and really with the resources at their disposal. Now, these people will have qualifications such as PMI, Prince 2, and it's very much a qualification and a methodology-based career. And I'll explain a bit more about methodologies in a bit. Now, very often here, this is an area where you find business analysts. These are essentially people who will understand how to carry out the nature of change within a business. Very often they will coincide with terms like change management. So whenever you have a business analyst being requested, this implies that change is due within an organization. They look at the idea of changing something in a systematic way. But in an agile type environment, you will see terms like product owners, scrum masters, and agile coaches. Now, we may not dwell too much about that here, but they are definitely something that you will need to know about. So, of course, there is a huge team known as the development team, and we can spend hours talking about these particular specialists, but in simple terms, developers tend to class themselves as being either front end, back end, or full stack. Now, the front end is actually what you see on screen, and so there are specialists who've gone through their career simply understanding the aesthetics of how to bring an application to you, how to make it much more usable, and we call those the GUI or front end developers. GUI stands for graphical user interface, but when you click on something, actually that is not where all the clever thinking part is. It is behind the scene, behind the front end, in an area of the program known as the business logic, and the people who specialize in this are what we call back-end developers. Now, back-end developers will have had a very different trajectory in their career to front-end developers. Typically, the back-end languages are much more techy. They are much less about templates and color and drag and drop, and they are much more about algorithms and mathematics. Of course, people who can do a myriad of front and back-end will tend to call themselves full-stack developers as well. So there are other developers who focus purely on the web side of things, and they will have a set of skills specifically for those. And then there are developers who will tend to focus on actually testing the product as well. Now, I'm tempted so much to dive deeply into all of these because this is a huge range of masterclasses that we have on the Academy. But of course, how can you tell whether you've got a front-end developer or a back-end developer? This is all to do with the languages that you see on their CVs. So a typical back-end developer would have languages such as Java, C#, C++, Scala, Golang. Now, once again, let me just pick up a mind map and show you from the platform the nuances and the intricacies of looking at something like a back-end developer role. These people have tools, they have skills and abilities, and of course, they will have libraries and frameworks that are pertaining to their own particular specialism. So you'll have a whole host of interview questions for these people as well, and we need to make sure that we are really clued up on those. Again, at the end, I'll give you some of these tools. As I mentioned earlier, data is such a huge area within tech recruitment. You can have everything from the data architects. These are the people who establish how the data is going to be set up in order to be utilized, right through to database developers, people who actually build the databases, and then the administrators. There's that term again, people who look after an existing database that has been built. But there is a huge area known as business intelligence and data warehousing, and this is typically the area of big data, so it goes beyond single databases. And this comes into the realm of not just understanding what data is, which is what a data analyst does, but actually predicting with algorithms what the data is showing us is going to happen. So predictive analytics is an area where data scientists get involved. Again, these are huge topics, but I'm just giving you a first glance at the whole scale of things within tech recruitment. Data is a huge area impacting all of our lives. Now moving over to network and infrastructure. Here we've mentioned these people before, but you'll have people like network administrators who will look after the entire network. Now, very often on networking CVs, you'll be required to look for Cisco qualified people. So you'll see terms like Cisco turning up a lot in the area of networking. If you're a network manager, a network engineer, or even a network architect, very often the client will ask for Cisco-based qualifications from you. These are terms like CCNA, CCNP, and CCIE. But occasionally, you'll be requiring Microsoft qualifications in the same vein, and others will tend more towards the Juniper side of things because they will be running Juniper networks. Now, I'm flying through these at the moment because we don't have the luxury of time. These are all individual areas that you really need to get trained up on properly if you're going to be a tech recruiter. But they're very easy to understand, and that's what I'm trying to show you, that actually they all tie in together. Now, as you've probably figured out, in the short time we have available in this session, this is not an extensive compilation of all the roles that exist within IT. But I'm going to finish off just this brief introduction to roles with this very special department, and it is of course all to do with AI and machine learning, because this is the area which is absolutely booming at the moment, and it will do as we go into the future. Since the launch of the GPTs and the LLMs around 2022 and 23 on a vast commercial scale, they've been around before this, AI has really hit the scene. And so when we think about the way things are going, let's be clear, no one really understands where all of this is going to end up. But there have been seismic level changes across organizations and business models. And if you're in tech recruitment and you're getting involved in AI, then of course you will come across terms like machine learning, predictive analytics, neural networks, robotic engineering, NLP. All of these are huge concepts of today, and they need their own masterclass to teach you what a machine learning engineer is, how does predictive analytics get into this, where do you class a network as becoming a neural network. All of these are really phenomenally exciting concepts, and I love this stuff, and I want you to approach it with the same passion as well. Now, we've got a range of masterclasses, but we have got a range of mind maps that we can send to you for this as well. They're not a substitute for the proper training that you have with videos and quizzes and certification, but they'll kickstart you in terms of understanding this area. So absolutely do take advantage of that towards the end of this and get involved in this huge blossoming area. Not only that, we need to understand that, of course, AI is impacting and actually revolutionizing the recruitment industry itself. And in 2025, our own training academy is evolving to bring in training that will show recruiters how to use AI agents and tools within their own recruitment process, how the whole AI concept is permeating the recruitment processes and actually turning us into much more efficient recruiters by allowing us to do the things that we humans are amazing at and taking away the things that we don't like to do. So for the last 40 years, recruiters have been process jockeys, really. There's so many things that we have to do day in, day out. But now we are entering an era where recruiters can actually 10x their own power and effectiveness. And this is because of the rise of AI within our own industry. This is unthinkable 5 years ago, but today we have tools, agents, and technologies that people before could not even dream of. Now we can have digital clones of ourselves going out and representing us to the candidate market while we sleep. We've got agents that can actually work as an army behind us, effectively 10xing our own impact in the industry. And so we're in a brave new world, and on the Training Academy we are bringing in tools, apps, bots, and training to make sure that you take part in that new change. In fact, on LinkedIn, I have written a newsletter which is going out on a weekly basis dealing with exactly this. How can you and your team become much more AI ready and agentic in terms of the new way of working? So I would definitely recommend that you go over there on a week by week basis and hook up to that newsletter, because you'll be able to get insights into the tools and the mindset you need as a team to become much more AI ready as a recruitment team going on from 2025. Absolutely essential that you go and check that out. So do that. But let's get back on to the training. So team, we're coming up to the final session now, and once again, a hugely important concept for you to understand. This session that we're going into now is really going to wrap up in terms of your fundamental pillars, but this may be amongst the most important things that you can learn. We have so far understood what IT is as a concept. We've understood what the layout of the IT department is. We've understood silos. We've even got into things like languages and understood the philosophies behind cloud and languages and databases. However, what we really haven't covered is how these people interact with each other to create IT products, and that's where we're going now. Make no mistake about this. Once you have done this, you cease to be an ordinary tech recruiter. Once you understand all the things that we have covered so far, but also this final piece, everything will change for you. So what we're going into now is all about methodologies. And I'm going to start off with an old methodology. Now, I want you to understand that the reason I'm doing this, by the way, this was the first thing I always used to teach my new team members as they joined, because not necessarily because all companies work like this, but because it is a very good way of teaching IT recruiters the interplay between roles. How do roles interact with each other? And after this session, you will begin to understand a huge concept, and that is that no tech role is divorced from any other tech role. Basically, IT is a narrative. As I've said, it unfolds from an idea and a concept, and it turns into a product over a period of time. But it has to go through a process, and your clients are going through that process when they approach you. Now, does it make sense that if you understood these methodologies, these processes, these ways of thinking, then of course you can be in tune with your client. You will better empathize with your client, you will understand their pain, and of course then you will be in a position to handhold them through that pain. And that's why we do this. So what we're going to introduce you to is this idea of the waterfall model. As I said, amongst the first two things that I would teach my teams when they joined is, number one, 3-layer model. We've already covered that. But then this. Again, I reiterate, this is not because everyone is using it like this, although a lot of companies are still on project lifecycle. Whenever you come across requirements that need Prince 2, PMP, or whenever the client mentions project, actually they are working in the method that I'm about to teach you. However, if they mention Agile or DevOps or Scrum, they've come away from this, and we'll look at that later on. But why are we doing this? Once again, Just to be sure, it's to show you the interplay between IT roles, and that is hugely important for you, as you'll find out in a minute. So let's introduce this concept. It is called the waterfall model. Actually, it was invented by a chap called Royce in the late 70s, but then eventually, because of the way it was laid out, people referred to this as the waterfall model. And Royce's model was a very rational, almost Socratic way of addressing IT problems. He answered the questions that always needed to be asked before you move on to the next phase, right down to, do we even need this? So he laid down a number of stages, typically 6, and the first stage answered the question, should we even go ahead with this? And that was a hugely important part of any project, as you can imagine, because if you get this wrong, you can waste a lot of money. In IT, in the waterfall model, this is known as the feasibility stage, and it's the stage at which users are interviewed, they're asked, what are their complaints? Why do they want to change the software? What do you need to be changed? And so for this stage here, we need a person who can come in, who is easy to speak to, who possibly was a user themselves at some point. They understand the business as well as the technology, but much more about the business. And these people are great communicators. They are the people who are charged with extracting the right information from the user before we can even proceed. And they answer the question, should we even go ahead? Now, this person is known as the business analyst, and they are the first person to come onto any project. Well, we have just suddenly understood something amazing, that when anybody comes to you and requires a business analyst, that client is undergoing huge amounts of change, and that should be very, very apparent to you immediately. Now, it's on their say-so that the project goes ahead or not. And when they say yes, we then get on another person who comes in specifically to trigger the project, to bring on the people, and specifically to look after the resources, the time, and the money involved in this project. They are experts at this. They are very systematic. They have their own methodologies for doing this, and they are called a project manager. So a project manager is hired after the first feasibility stage of the waterfall model. And they will very often get involved in hiring the second person who comes on. Now, that second person who comes on, again, answers a very simple question, and that is, what might we need? Now, this is not detailed, it's a very abstract what. And so is it a database? Is it a website? Are we going to build on site, or is this going to be off site? Is it going to be a cloud-based environment? That sort of question. And this person in the olden days was known as a systems analyst, but nowadays we refer to them very often as a technical BA. Now, these first two roles very often are combined, and very often you'll also see terms like functional analyst or functional engineer, and that's where these two come in. They're not overly technical. They're not solving technical problems at this stage. They are defining the problem in a technical way. Now, once the technical BA has done their thing, the next person we bring on is someone really clever. And by now you should understand who this is. So the next question that is answered is, how is this solution going to work? And that person who comes on at the design stage, Now, here we need someone very clever, and we already know that the very clever person is going to be an architect. So this is where your architect appears in the project environment. Now, as the architect comes on, they're not necessarily going to build your project, but they will be the people who will dictate which language we're going to use, which frameworks we're going to use, and what type of developers, if it is a software, what sort of developers you might need. And those developers will work underneath the architect, much like building a house. Just like in a building situation, an architect designs a house and then they get the brickies or the bricklayers of the trade to come in and build according to their needs. And in the same way, a developer builds according to the needs of the architect. Now, these people will build in line with those specs, the technical specification, and they will then get it ready for you and me in a stage known as delivery. Now, of course, just before delivery to you and me, we will need to go through a process known as testing. And this is where the testers come in. Can you see how beautifully logical and rational this process was? Once the software has been tested, it's being delivered, and then you, with all the systems that you're currently using, are in the final stage of your project or waterfall model now. It is in the maintenance stage. And in that maintenance stage, you've got a specific group of people. We've already mentioned them earlier, but they are help desk and support. Help desk and support. Now, I just want to zoom out and you can now see the beauty of the waterfall model. Hey folks, on the platform, of course, we spend a lot more time going through individually all of these stages, but more importantly, on the Training Academy, all of these individual areas are given as a masterclass and a video series and a certification in their own right. We haven't got the luxury of that here, but we are going through a very important concept so that you can understand at a helicopter view exactly how the waterfall model or the project lifecycle works. Okay, and this is how IT products are made. How beautiful is that for you? Because of course, now, if you go into a client site and they're looking for business analysts, of course, you would say, sounds to me as if you're at the feasibility stage of the project. But what else could you say? Look at this model. What else could you say? This is hugely important for you as a recruiter to know. Yes, you can not only understand where the client is, but you can preempt where the client is going. So you could feasibly say something like, sounds to me as if you're at the feasibility stage, but is it okay if I stay in touch, Mr. Client, Ms. Client, because it looks like in 6 months from now, you will need a project manager. 6 months from there, you will need a a technical BA. 6 months from there, you will need a technical architect, etc., etc. This understanding of a model such as this simple understanding, if your client is working in a project environment, allows you to have a conversation that handholds them through a much larger campaign. So this turns a simple 80K requirement or vacancy into a conversation that can lead into a $2 million campaign, because you are then going back and holding their hands through the whole process. Can you see how important this is? Now, very often you will see colleagues saying, oh, project is dead. You will hear that a lot. But clearly, project isn't dead, because there are certain situations where only waterfall will work. Of course, there are certain situations where the alternatives work, and I'll come back to that in a minute. But if you look at a situation like SAP or ERP, they are very rigid. They are very into project lifecycle. They will take their time. They will go through stages. Anywhere where you've got a project manager being required is working in this way. Anywhere where they mention things like SSADM, Prince2, these are all project environments. Now, I won't dwell on this because, of course, this can be a huge session, but it's just to give you that first very important glance into the world of methodologies and how IT roles interact with each other. No role is divorced from any other. IT is a narrative that is unfolding, and that's what you need to understand. Now let's move on and look at the transformation of why we came away from the waterfall model. Now, we take our time and do this properly on the Academy, but here I just want to kind of handhold you through this. So if you look at the waterfall model, it was Royce himself who said, hey, listen, there'll be a time on the planet when this may not work. And he was right, of course. The waterfall model is too rigid. It's very structured. It takes too long. It is also very role dependent. And what that means is that if you pull one of these people away, if they break their contract and leave halfway through, well, you're frozen in that project. You cannot move on to the next stage. And that was the huge downside of something like the waterfall model. But of course, technology was also moving very fast. So your typical waterfall model in the City of London, in, let's say, the financial sector, was anywhere from 2 years to 4 years. In the government sector, it can be up to 6 years. And if you look at the rate of change of technology today, you can see how ridiculous that concept is. Today, technology changes so fast that you cannot lay down requirements and then expect that thing to be delivered in 2 years or 4 years. Guess what happens when you do that? By the time you come to the end, the product is obsolete. And this happens a lot with waterfall and project life cycles. When they deliver the product after the 3 years, the users will often say, yeah, that's what we wanted then, but it's not what we need anymore. The market has changed, the technologies have changed, and by the way, our needs have changed. Things are changing fast today, and waterfall could not catch up. Now, Royce himself offered a solution. He called it RAD, Rapid Application Development. But actually, we don't call it RAD anymore. RAD became the father of the current methods. And these are methods like Agile. So let's go there now. No matter what your views on Apple as a company, when Steve Jobs launched this amazing device in 2007 called the iPhone, it made telecoms directors around the world look at their primitive devices and suddenly change their approach to the way they developed technology. Suddenly, the world had been sparked into a new way of working. They had to get into the race or they were dead. Remember Nokia, anyone? The speed to market became an essential thing, and this triggered a revolution in the way we developed technological products around the world. And now it was about being innovative and quick to market. So what we need today are methodologies that don't take 2 to 3 years to deliver an IT system, but more like 3 to 6 months. And that's where terms like Agile and Scrum come in. Now on the platform, again, of course, we've got hours of training to get you fully acquainted with the entire recruitment arena of Agile, Scrum, and DevOps, looking at roles like product owner, Scrum Master, DevOps engineer, even DevSecOps. And so we're not going to go mad about that here, of course. We don't have the time. But what you will need to know is that all of these, when they use terms like Kanban, Agile, or Scrum, the client is telling you that we don't like working in the old structured way. Now, what does this mean for you? Of course, you are now looking for candidates who have worked in a Scrum or Agile environment, and that is very different to candidates who have worked in the old project way. So these people will be able to jump into a room with a whole bunch of strangers and start working immediately. The whole idea of Agile and Scrum is about speed and making sure that you are fully acquainted with what the user needs. So you'll have a product owner, the users present. In a sense, they'll be working in a very pressurized environment, quite stressful environment. And Agile and Scrum is all about creating beautiful working models very, very quickly indeed. Agile involves very quickly gathering the entire team of experts that you need, including product owner, developers, testers, Scrum Master, and bringing them all into an environment and getting them to work on the product immediately. Also present are the users in person or through the product owner, because the product owner's job is to make sure that the user's feedback is always fed back into the product. And this is hugely important. So unlike the old project lifecycle, where you only saw the users at the feasibility stage and then back in testing, here you've got the constant input from users. So Agile products will very rarely become obsolete when they're delivered. Also, the alternative methods are all about speed. So Agile works in a cyclical way, making sure that the users feedback on a constant basis, and usually they will deliver the product in 3 months. So there is a snapshot of the way Agile is working. In DevOps, we take it one step further and create an environment, a culture where the operations and the dev people, the developers, are actually forced to work together. Now, of course, I say forced, but this culture breeds technical experts who are used to working and collaborating in ways that we haven't done for the last 40 years. So where developers and operations or support people were detached, now we are bringing them together, and actually we're creating mechanisms and using tools that will set up an environment where there is continuous development. So you'll see the term CD, CI. The term continuous is the key term within a DevOps environment. So in this environment, the developers plan the code, build the code, test the code, throw it out into a working environment, and in that working environment, the operations people, help desk support, will take this product, deploy it to the users will use it, the users will complain, feedback, any downsides of the product, but now you have an avenue and a roadmap back into the development scene, where the product can be put back into the development environment and it will then be worked on again. So here you have an infinite loop of development. So what is DevOps? DevOps is basically a culture of continuous development and improvement. Whereas in project, there was a finished product and it was deemed complete. In DevOps, the product is never deemed complete. And so therefore, you will always have avenues to improve that software or database or website. Now, here's a really important hint before I leave this topic completely. Whenever you see terms like microservices, containers, you're in DevOps. Whenever you see terms like Ansible, Kubernetes, Docker, SaltStack, you are in a DevOps environment. You are recruiting for a DevOps environment. And whenever you see terms like CI/CD, CD/CM, any of these combinations, you can be sure that you're recruiting for a client who has gone over to DevOps. We're not going to go through the pros and cons of all of these approaches here, but my recommendation is that you do need to take your time as a tech recruiter and really go through and understand project lifecycle, agile, DevOps, Scrum. All of that stuff needs to be understood so that you can really be comfortable when you're speaking to these people. Look, I'm going to leave it there for now. I really hope this has proved useful. As I mentioned before, we'll go back and look at any questions and comments arising from the webinar. So do let us know what you liked and what further topics you'd like covered in future in the comments section. Now, for all of you, there are just 2 ways to move forward from here. Now, also, I haven't forgotten, I did promise you that free gift to take away from this event, and I'll definitely show you in just a bit how to obtain this. This will be a whole bunch of mind maps of IT roles, PDFs, and more to help you from here on in your day-to-day role as a tech recruiter. It's going to be invaluable stuff which you are about to get for free. But just before I do that, I do want to briefly tell you about the next steps that you can also take to really supercharge your career even further. So stick around. I really think this is going to be to your advantage to hear what I have to say now. So firstly, do ask yourself, do you feel better now? Do you feel more comfortable about the industry that you're working in? I really hope you are. Well, remember, we've just scratched the surface, and what you're feeling now is the impact that just that little piece of knowledge this session has had. But imagine, there is, of course, so much more to this. Imagine what could happen and how you could transform yourself in just 8 weeks from now if you decided to go all in and transform yourself into a certified expert IT recruiter. What impact would this have on your ability to stand head and shoulders above other recruiters, on your ability to convince clients to give you their best IT requirements, on your ability to source the best candidates? What impact would this make on your ability to make far more money as a tech recruiter, or indeed as a tech recruitment team, when your success rate starts to double? What could a heightened version of you or your teams make 8 weeks from now? A version of you or your team which sounds more expert, more seasoned, more experienced. Ask yourself, what would you be willing to do to shortcut a couple of years worth of frustration and groping around in the dark to try and make sense of things? Can any of you in today's market afford to keep doing what you are currently doing? Can you afford the wasted time opportunity of working in the way that you are currently working, trying to muddle through and teach yourself with random snippets from YouTube videos and GPT searches? What are you ready to do to bring forward the heightened expert version of you to within a few weeks from now? If you've enjoyed this presentation and you really get what we're trying to do for IT recruiters, then of course there is a next step for you. I'm so glad that we've met today, and I'd be delighted to move this relationship forward. Knowing that with a tiny investment, within a few weeks or months from now, you could have the entire universe of technical recruitment fully embedded into your mind so that you can sound like an expert and stand out from all the others. Once again, we can do this for you, and we can do this without you having to study tons of books, so without you having to go from website to Google to ChatGPT and trying to understand everything for yourself. We can do this in a structured, efficient way. Even if you are not in a position to set up a dedicated on-site session with me, what you will get from our involvement is a customized training roadmap to propel yourself or your team. We will give you the foundations you need if you are new to the industry, with all the support you need all the way. We will also give you the advanced level of training if you've been in the industry for a while and now you want to be a vertical expert in a particular area. Either way, you'll have the opportunity to learn and grow at your own pace at a time that suits you. And when you've finished everything, you will get certified, which you can display on LinkedIn or your CV as an expert tech recruiter. Now, the question is, there's an easy way to do all of this and there's a hard way to do this. Which route do I want my team to go through? Which route do I want my new intake of recruiters to actually go through? And that is the question you need to ask yourself. If you're looking after a team of recruiters and you can see that they are just trying to muddle through on their own in this challenging market and just somehow trying to work it out on their own, that is a risky position to put your team members in. You need people who are going to enjoy the job, engage, and not get frustrated and think about leaving. Imagine making just this really important investment in them today to create a motivated group of people so that they enjoy what they're actually doing. We've seen it time and time again with people around the world. Thousands of people are going through this, and we want you to get there too. Why don't you join us? The next step is really simple. Let's just have a conversation and discuss your situation. It's as simple as that. I need to get a really good understanding of where you're at the moment and to see if we can actually work together and if we can actually help you. So here's my offer. And today I'm going to make it a no-brainer for you. I'm going to be totally transparent so that there is no confusion. If you're managing a team of recruiters and you feel that this is going to transform them, then today I have a deal for you. So listen up. The pricing I'm looking to offer is to give full access to your recruitment teams today. But to offer this to you at the same tremendously discounted ticket price, which we would only usually offer to our large enterprise clients. To be clear, those clients are those who have registered over 100 users onto our academy at a time. They are usually the only ones who are offered what I'm going to give you, this level of discount, which I'm about to give you today. So today, you won't need to be a global recruitment company with hundreds of users to take advantage of the discounted licenses. Today, we're not asking you to have 100 people in your team, not even 50. You can join at the same reduced rate for a team as low as 10 or even 5. As small as 5 to 10. Now, if you're an individual, stick around because I'll explain your deal in a minute. But first, let's wrap up you who are recruitment team managers. Remember, here's what I'm saying. The standard price per user per month to enroll onto our academy is usually £40 per user per month, billed annually. That is our subscription price for the IT Academy, which in itself is actually great value when you think of what you're getting. However, when we've got large clients, what we do is if a client wants to enroll 100 users at a time in blocks of 100, we reduce this down even more to £30 per user for that level of volume. Now that's the advantage which I'm now going to pass on to you. It's the thing we give to large companies, but today I'm going to pass that over to you even if you have a smaller team. So I know that if you're doing your calculations in your head right now, you're wondering how this works, and this is what you need to do. Look at the number of tech recruiters that you currently would like to put through the academy. Multiply that number by 30 and then multiply that number by 12 and you'll have that ridiculously low figure. That figure which you need to invest to take part if you sign up today. Now then appreciate what you're about to obtain for your team over the next 12 months for that figure, which is this. You will get full access for 12 months to a complete and structured training academy that consists of over 100 hours of professional video coaching to bring your team's expertise and impact to another level. take them beyond the 1% of most recruiters in IT. We'll teach them from the foundations of IT to the specialist areas such as recruiting AI, big data, blockchain, and cybersecurity. They will get access to hundreds of mind maps, which describes the duties, the terms, the tools, the technologies associated with each role, so that they become really confident in their lexicon when they speak to candidates at all levels. They will also get mind maps which will show how to really carry out an in-depth interview with all the questions they need in front of them when they speak to candidates. There are quizzes and there are certifications every time they go through a masterclass. So each individual, when they finish their masterclass successfully, they will be able to get certification. And get this, there are no restrictions to the number of times they take a masterclass or indeed how long they take in getting there. Each of your recruiters will have their own personalized training roadmap so that they can focus on the training which they need most urgently, enabling them to specialize very quickly, say in project management, cybersecurity, infrastructure, or development. In 2025, the other thing is that our platform is going fully mobile first, which means that they can easily download and watch video contents on a plane or on a train as if they were on Netflix. Or they could listen to a series of professionally made podcasts whilst on the train. Here's a brief snippet of one of the podcasts from the series that actually explains the IT roles to you and walks you through the mind map as you're looking at it. Really huge.
And as Ayub points out, a really good technical recruiter really needs to understand all the ins and outs of the role they're trying to fill.
Right, like they can't just match keywords on a resume. They actually need to know what a big data architect does.
Exactly. That the systems run smoothly and efficiently.
Oh yeah, that's crucial, especially when you're dealing with massive data sets.
It is. And then on top of all that, they need to be able to evaluate new technologies as they come out, because these tools like Hadoop, Apache, Spark, and Flink.
Those are some of the heavy hitters in big data processing.
They are. And then there's storage giants like Amazon S3 and Cassandra.
Yeah, those are the places where all that data lives.
They are. And then, of course, we can't forget about security tools like Kerberos and data encryption.
Essential for keeping all that data safe and sound.
Now, a recruiter isn't going to be actually using these tools themselves, but Ayub stresses that a basic understanding of them is really important.
Right, so they can actually have intelligent conversations with both the hiring managers and the candidates.
Exactly. It's all about speaking the same language, understanding the ecosystem.
Yeah, so they can accurately assess a candidate.
To be clear, that's just a part of our audio series and not the actual video lectures. We know that the best tech recruiters in the industry are those that are steeped in this stuff, the people who actually understand what they're saying and can actually be on the same wavelength as the clients and the candidates. And through this academy, we are hitting you from all sides in terms of audio, visual, motivational, informational knowledge that will be relevant to your career. There is no better way to motivate your team and make them feel really a part of a profession. And it's constantly increasing as well with new content all the time. And the best bit, here it comes. As long as your license is active, they get access to everything in the library for that duration, including any new material we put on there. And here's the final best bit. Listen up, make no mistake about this. This is the most extensive training academy in the world, both in breadth and in depth, bar none. I guarantee you will not be able to find a comparison anywhere else like this. And it is delivered by yours truly, a multi-award-winning coach and mentor. But managers, listen up carefully for the final bit. There is one thing which is really important, and it will mitigate the risk that you've got in your mind at the moment. When you purchase your licenses, you are not purchasing named licenses. What this means is that should you buy a block of 10 licenses for an initial set of students, and should one of those students leave, you can replace that seat with another new recruit when they join. So in this way, you can reuse the license allocations so that you don't need to reinvest each time a person leaves and is replaced by another recruiter. We understand the issues with the IT recruitment industry of turnover. And this is why we built that into this model. That is a huge bonus that we also offer our larger clients, but I'm going to give that to you as a small team as well. So you can literally see that I have thought of everything, and it is a no-brainer. We've made it a no-brainer, really cost-effective way to get your team supercharged and equipped with a phenomenal resource that they will have available at their fingertips for the next 12 months. So what is the next step that you need to take? What you need to do now is take decisive action to change your future. And here's how we do it. There'll be a book a call button below or a book a call link in the comments. Just click on that. Set up a chat with me, explain your situation so that I can personally understand your needs. And during that process, you'll be able to let me know how many people you want to register onto our platform. Now, we have a limitation based on our cloud provider as to the monthly number of people that we will be able to install onto the system. But if you apply immediately, if you fill out the forms and get the book a call session booked in, you should be approved at our end as well. Now, for the individuals, for you, it's a similar no-brainer. You simply need to head to the link and take advantage of a 6-month access deal, which we have designed for you. And this is for you who are attending the webinar today. And you need to do this quickly for the same reasons, that we have a limitation to the number of people we take on. This means that only for you coming off this webinar, we are currently offering a 6-month access to the Academy, full access to everything that's on there, just like the enterprise people. And that is for a single payment of £250. Again, a dramatic change from the normal fee that we charge. Once again, all of the benefits of the world's leading training academy for you, the one that is being used by Fortune 500 companies, is now available to you as a sole recruiter. This means you can be starting off in your career, a freelance recruiter, working within an organization, but you will have all the benefits of the large organizations using our academy. This opportunity doesn't always happen where you can play on the same level playing field. Once again, support, certifications, and kudos of being an expert IT recruiter are all within your grasp too. And look at the cost of entry to this elite club. Less than the price you would pay for coffee per day during the year. How serious are you about becoming an expert in the industry? That is what you need to ask yourself today. Make this small commitment and you will be well on your way. And finally, here is my free gift to help you on your way, whatever path you choose. So just go to holisticatraining.com/mindmapgift and you can get that bumper pack of IT roles and their duties and the interview questions sent directly to your email. That's www.holisticatraining.com/mindmapgift, all one word. I'll leave that there for a second just for you to use. Indeed, you can take a screenshot of that and use a QR code that way. Okay, listen, whichever direction you're going in, it's time for you to take action. We're ready and waiting to start processing the first of the inquiries from this point on now. Now, please bear with us because it often takes a little time to get to you if there's a surge. We will get to everyone, companies and individuals as well. Listen, it's been an absolute blast putting this together for you. I hope that you've enjoyed it. I look forward to speaking to many of you in person after this to discuss whatever ideas are on your mind about how we can help you. If you're watching this on a live stream, we'll be going through, as I said, looking at the comments and starting to reply to your questions now. As always, do connect with me on LinkedIn. Do also subscribe to my YouTube channel, which is Tech Recruitment Guru, or just search at @AyubSheikh_tech. But for now, it just remains for me to say that I wish you health, happiness, and a great career ahead in tech recruitment. Until we speak, all the very best for now.